Remember that one time when you were glued to your screen, or when you were so deeply immersed into the activity that you did that you simply couldn't stop doing it? Or let me say, it was so addictive for you that you did not want to stop the activity. If yes, my friend, then you were in the zone. You were in flow. And there are many activities that can get you into flow. It could be video gaming. It could be talking to someone who you find fascinating. And it could even be your daily work. Now, let me ask you, what if you could have this state of flow regularly? This addictive, extreme focus and total immersion into an activity? What if you could just switch on flow to learn for your exams, for example, to get those key business presentations done, or to write that article, report, or publication that's due? Well, stay tuned, because today's video will tell you exactly what you need to do to get into flow. Now, we'll first cover why you want more flow in your life, because trust me, there are many more mind-blowing reasons for that. Then second, I will explain how flow feels so that you can gauge how flowy you are at any given moment. Third, I will briefly explain neuroscience and what the requirements are to enter flow. And this is important for you because this understanding will demystify flow for you. You will know the mechanisms behind flow that trigger flow so they can reproduce flow more easily. And lastly, I will show you the 6 internal flow triggers that science has discovered and how you can use these 6 triggers and even incorporate them into your goals to fill your life with more flow. Of note, there are actually more than 6 flow triggers, and I can cover them in a future video as well. So just let me know in the comments. Anyhow, as always, I would appreciate if you could smash those like and subscribe buttons so that we can build an army of high performance and neuroscience enthusiasts together. That said, my name is Nicholas. I'm a neuroscientist, dementia researcher, as well as a high performance and flow coach. And this is how to use the 6 internal flow triggers to get into flow. So first and foremost, let's talk about why flow is so amazing. Now, this is actually a quote that I got from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He's the one who discovered flow, who coined it, in fact. And to quote him, flow is a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. And flow is also a state of complete absorption in the current experience. And in fact, there was a study that was done by McKinsey that spent over 10 years and looked at flow. And what I found in this study is that flow in fact increased learning and memory by 200%. So you learn 3 times as fast in flow, which is insane. They found a 500% productivity increase. That means that you get 5 days of work done in a single day. Think about that. Then meaning and fulfillment is 100% increase in flow, so doubled basically. And creativity is increased by 430%. So what this all tells you is that flow is a state of absolute human peak performance. So it's one of the ultimate brain states you can be in, basically. And in fact, the mission of the Flow Research Collective, which I'm part of now as well as a flow coach, is that they want to get more people into flow. Because the more people we get into flow, the more we in fact advance humanity as a species, the more breakthroughs we have. Also based on the increases in creativity, based on the increases in productivity, based on the increases in meaning and fulfillment, etc. Now, I talked to many people in the past, and what I noticed is that many people have an idea. So if I talk about flow, they somewhat knew what I was talking about, but I couldn't really assign it to anything. I couldn't really tell whether they've been in flow themselves or not. And I must say, myself, in fact, when I first heard about the description of flow, that's when I also realized, hey, I've actually been in flow here and there. So that is why for you, I want to cover how flow in fact feels so that you know for the future as a reference whether you are in flow. And of course, that you can look back and think about what activities got you into flow. So what makes you feel flowy? And what you find in flow is these 6 characteristic features. And the first thing is, of course, the total absorption into what you do. So you're completely immersed. The example I want to give is video gaming, for example. It's just something that glues you to the screen, literally. So you have this total absorption in flow. Then what you also have a sense of oneness. So everything seems to merge. And what you have in flow in particular is that taking action and awareness, both of it also merges. So that means that you can simultaneously work on something and you can solve problems while you work on something. Normally you have 2 different brain areas that are, and only one of them is active at a time. So you have the executive attention network that allows you to execute tasks. And you have the default mode network that comes up with ideas, which is very important for creativity, in fact. And normally only one of them is active, but in flow, both of them are linked, which allows you to, again, to take action, to get good ideas while you take action. And it's even known in creativity research that the better those 2 brain networks are linked, the more creative you are. And that is one of the reasons why flow is, in fact, making you more creative, because it improves the cooperation between the default mode network and the executive attention network. I made a separate video about how creativity works, so I will link it for you in the description, so check it out. Also to get more tools that you can use to become more creative. Now, the third feature of flow is that your self vanishes, even your inner critique vanishes. I will talk about why this happens, but in flow, again, self-critique, gone. Even realizing your own body, gone. Might be, an example would be you play video games. So you play it, after 5 hours, your mother comes in, scolds you, and all of a sudden you notice, damn, I have to go to the toilet. So that's basically because your self vanishes in flow. You don't notice yourself anymore. Another thing is that your sense of time changes. So time can either accelerate. So 5 hours can feel like 5 minutes. That could be video gaming. For me personally, it's actually writing, academic writing. I can get started in 6 hours, I've done it in no time. But the opposite can also appear, and that is that things seem to slow down. This, what, for example, happens in extreme sport athletes. So they might jump from a cliff, and all of a sudden, time freezes. So this one moment when they jump from a cliff, it can feel like minutes. So it can really expand. And this is also related to the release of neurochemicals in flow. I will not go into detail here, but it would be neurochemicals like serotonin and dopamine that pretty much dictate how we perceive time. Then 5, that's also in flow, you have a feeling of extreme control. In fact, flow can even lead to a feeling of grandiosity. It can make you feel so amazing you think you're the king of the world, basically, which is actually a negative side of flow. But then again, this feeling of extreme control, that is what you get in flow. And lastly, flow is autotelic. And autotelic is just a psychological difficult term, and what it means is that it feels amazing. It feels incredibly enjoyable. It's addictive, basically, like video gaming. You start video gaming, and it feels so addictive to you that you just can't stop doing it. I get into flow of writing, and fun fact, sometimes I wish I could spend more time to just write because it feels so addictive to me. And again, that is related to flow. All right, now we have the features covered. Now onto the neurochemistry behind flow. And this is important for you to know because these are the keys to get yourself into flow. If you understand that, then you can make use of that, again, to get yourself into flow on purpose. And it will also help you to understand why the flow triggers that I will tell you or show you in a second, why they work. Now, there are generally 2 ways to get into flow, or 2 keys, you could say. And the first one is dopamine. Norepinephrine as well, partially, but dopamine is key. And we know that from studies because people that have more dopamine receptors in their brain have an easy time to get into flow, believe it or not. And that is why it's very clear that dopamine, and also of course the amount of dopamine receptors, so dopamine binds to receptors to exert its function in the brain. But then again, the more dopamine you get from something, the easier it will be to get into flow. Norepinephrine is in fact a stress hormone and is partially related because norepinephrine it decides your alertness. If you have a lot of norepinephrine in your system, then you're very alert, you're very attentive, and if you're very attentive, then obviously it's easier to do something. Whereas if you have no norepinephrine, when you're asleep, for example, you obviously cannot pay attention, and if you cannot pay attention, then you cannot get into flow. Makes sense. So that is why norepinephrine is also partially here. On the other hand, the second key to flow is lowering your cognitive load. Now, cognitive load, what this means is that we have a bandwidth. So you can only do a certain amount of tasks at a time. And the more you do, the more your brain capacity and your ability to focus shrinks. Let's say you have 100%. Now you think about dinner. What should I cook for dinner? That takes a little bit of your attention off. So you might only have 80% left, 80% of brain capacity. Then you had, let's say, an argument with your sister, and this weighs on you. You think about, what can I do? What did I do wrong? You're all upset. You're all crazy. Reduces your brain capacity a little bit more. So it might shrinks down to 50%. Now you have those 50% left. You sit down, and again, you can use those 50% to focus. And since it's harder for you to focus, it's also harder for you to get into flow, in the state of total absorption. And that is, again, one of the reasons why lowering your cognitive load will help you to get into flow. And in fact, it will also improve your focus in general. More about these later and how you can use them to your advantage. But before we go into that, I want to cover a very characteristic feature of flow, and that is called transient hypofrontality. Hypo means less or lowered, and what happens here in particular is that the blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, so that's in the front of your brain, basically here, is reduced. So the activity in your prefrontal cortex goes down. And the prefrontal cortex is actually where logical thought in the brain happens. That's where we do planning. That's where we do logical thinking. That's when we execute the brain area with which we execute tasks. It's even the brain area of self-doubt. So that's where all of these thoughts come up. For example, if I hold a speech and you think, well, am I good enough? Am I prepared enough? I think I can't do this. All of these thoughts are actually made in your prefrontal cortex, in the logical center of your brain. And interestingly, in flow, this part of your brain is shut off, believe it or not. And that's why it's called transient hypofrontality. Again, hypo for less active. And what it allows you to do in flow is that you transition from conscious thinking, from logical thinking, you switch that off, and that allows you to transition into subconscious automatic processing. So things just flow. In other words, things are just automatic, and that is what happens in flow. Now that we know this, let's move on to the flow triggers. That's what you've been most excited for, I suppose. And of course, how you can leverage these flow triggers to your advantage to get into flow more consistently, to get the massive productivity, creativity boost, etc. And there are 6 of them. At least there are much more than that, in fact. I can cover other flow triggers in the future, but these are the ones that are related to yourself. And what these flow triggers do is either A, increase dopamine. If you remember, dopamine is one of the keys to get into flow. Or they reduce cognitive load, which is again another way to get into flow. And these are the 6. I just read it out for you, and I will go into detail in a moment. And the first one would be the combination of curiosity, passion, and purpose. The second flow trigger would be to increase your autonomy. The third one is complete concentration. Funny enough, complete concentration is both a flow trigger and a flow feature. So in flow, you have complete concentration, but concentrating on something also helps you to get into flow. Then the challenge and skills balance. That's probably the most important one for flow. So stay tuned for that one. Then clear goals, what this means again in a moment, and getting immediate feedback. All right, let's look into that in detail now. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you stack up curiosity, passion, and purpose, because all of these help you to get more dopamine from what you do. Generally, what you need to know is that there are two ways to get dopamine. The first one is to do an activity that you enjoy. Could be football, could be playing an instrument, or it could be doing your work. Maybe you like writing like I do. So an activity can be a source of dopamine. Or second, dopamine, you also get it from rewards. So maybe you get a promotion, a job promotion, you get dopamine from it. That's another way. But for flow, we want to get our dopamine from activities. That is the way to get into flow. I made a separate video about dopamine and its role in motivation and how you can leverage dopamine to increase your motivation consistently. So I will link you that in the description as well. That said, let's look into flow. Curiosity is also related to dopamine, and that is actually evolutionary. In this sense, you discover something new, you look into something you're interested in, and if you find something interesting, it releases dopamine. Why is that? Because that is a mechanism of biology, a biological mechanism to ensure your survival. Because let's think back about the Stone Age. In Stone Age, you were walking through a new area, and all of a sudden you see an interesting spot. Let's say mushrooms are growing there, and you got curious. And what happens then is that dopamine is released in your brain. Now, dopamine is a neurochemical that motivates you, to makes you move towards something, to make you get something. And in this context, again, you saw mushrooms growing there, dopamine is released, and this dopamine makes you walk towards this area because there could be more mushrooms. Maybe there could be banana trees, whatever it is, there could be more. So again, curiosity is a way to get dopamine. Let's use a more modern example. Let's say you read a book. You come across something that you find interesting. Dopamine is released in your brain, and dopamine then makes you read more into it. Maybe there's more interesting stuff in this book. So it increases motivation, makes you go for it, and that is the way to get into flow. Again, getting in flow, the easiest way is to just be curious. Be curious about something. Find something, ask yourself, what is going on? Why is this like this? How is this working? So again, engage curiosity and get dopamine from what you do, and you get into flow easier. But curiosity is often not enough. Ideally, you combine it with passion and purpose. And what it means is that passion is just that you love what you do, obviously. So you love the activity. That's why you get dopamine from the activity. And ideally, you do it to make a positive impact on others. Let's take my example. Dementia research, for example. I love lab work. I love writing. So I like the activity itself, I get dopamine from it. But in addition, I do it to hopefully have a positive impact on others. Hopefully to find a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. So that is just another way to get even more dopamine from what I do. And in this case, once again, if you stack all of them, if you stack curiosity, you're curious about something, you do what you love, and you do it to have a greater purpose, a positive impact on others, that is a way to ensure that what you do gives you a ton of dopamine. And if you get a ton of dopamine from it, again, that is the entry key to flow. You will get flowy very easily. And if you get this right for your profession, if you get this right for your hobbies, I will guarantee you that flow will be very common for you. The second flow trigger you want to use is autonomy. And as I mentioned just now, you can either do what you love. If you do what you love, you get a lot of dopamine from this activity to get you into flow. Or what you can also do is that you want to do what you have to do. And that is very simply because, in fact, we can influence the dopamine system in our brain with reframing. So the way we look at something decides whether we get a lot of dopamine from it or whether we don't get any from it. It's actually very important for challenges. Let's say you love cold showers. I do. I love cold showers because I give myself a reason to do it. So I tell myself that I feel great afterwards. My energy levels go up. Because it releases adrenaline, cold showers, they actually help me to ward off infections. Uh, Again, adrenaline releases killer cells in your spleen, in fact. So I see many advantages in doing cold showers. I also use them to train my mental grid. And because I give all of these reasons, I want to do it. Of course, cold showers don't feel good, obviously, not pleasant, but again, I have all of these reasons why I want to do it. Then I get the cold shower done, and I feel good afterwards. I get dopamine from the activity because I conquered the challenge. On the other hand, if you hate cold showers, if you go in with the mindset, it sucks, this person forced me to do it, this freaking high performance coach tells me I must do it, so I do it. In that case, you don't get any dopamine from it. The activity will not feel good for you, and you will not get into flow. So once again, autonomy. Either love what you do, ideal case scenario, or give yourself a reason why you want to do it. If you hate the job that you're doing, maybe tell yourself that you do it to earn money so that you can do the job that you actually want to do. If you hate jogging, tell yourself that you do it for the health benefits, to increase your discipline, and that it will make you tougher and healthier, etc. Because the thing is, we want to be the master of our own life. We want to steer our own ship, and we don't want to be forced to it. It's even known that if we're forced to do something, our health decreases. But then again, if we are doing something voluntarily, like exercise, then it actually improves our health. And the same with dopamine. Do it because you love it, get dopamine from it. Do it for a reason, get dopamine from it. Be forced to do it, don't get any dopamine, don't get any flow. Next is complete concentration. So let's pop these guys in real quick. What we have here in this case is that once again, complete concentration is not only a flow feature, but it's also a way to get into flow. And in order to be more focused on what you do, you have to remove all distractions. I would call it put your phone away, close social media. That is the biggest distraction there is. We spend over 120 minutes a day on average on social media. So that's a focus killer. Social media can even cause ADHD, although I will not go into detail here. Then, of course, food is a big distraction. So thinking about what you do for dinner, for example, that can occupy your brain. Watching the news, thinking about all of the bad things that happen in the world. Then, of course, YouTube and Netflix, amazing distractions. Then colleagues and friends. What I like to do is just hang up my fuck off sign basically on my door so that people know, all right, he's working. And arbitrary tasks. Believe it or not, it's just habitual busyness, as you can also call it. Maybe you start writing your essay, and 10 minutes in you think like, oh, I have to clean up the kitchen. Let's do it real quick. And what you've done there is pretty much giving yourself some fake. It's basically a very simple distraction in a way that you substitute an important task with a less important task. So maybe writing your essay causes anxiety. You don't feel like doing it, and then you're like, oh, let's do something easier. Let's just clean up the house. Let's clean up the kitchen because it looks horrible. So it makes you feel busy. It gives you a bit of fake dopamine because you accomplished something. But then again, all it did is distracting you from your actual work. And what you want to do is just eliminate all of these distractions. Have your work sessions, nice and 120 minutes. I will mention that in a second again. And the more you can focus on something, the easier it is to immerse into a task. The easier it is to get into flow. You will get more dopamine from what you do because you're more focused. And of course, it will reduce cognitive load because while you work, you don't have to worry about food anymore. You don't have to worry about cleaning up anymore, etc. That is probably the most important one, and that is the so-called challenge and skills balance. So let me pop these in for you guys. With the challenge and skills balance, there's an optimum. It's what we call the flow channel. So if you have a high challenge and it meets your skills, then you get into flow. If the challenge is too easy, you get bored, you get sluggish. And on the other hand, if the challenge is too high, for example, you have an overwhelming task to do, like let's say you have to write an entire master's thesis in like 2 weeks, which is probably a lot, then it might cause anxiety. And the negative emotions, the anxiety, then prevent you from taking action. That's actually also one of the reasons of procrastination. I made a separate video about that, which I will link you in the comments. But procrastination is caused by this misaligned challenge and skills balance. So it's either too hard that it causes anxiety, and the anxiety prevents you from doing the task, or it's so easy that you get bored. And if you're bored and sluggish, then you don't feel like working. And what you do in this case is adjust it. Always adjust it. If I feel bored and sluggish in the morning, if I get up and I don't feel like doing it, I make it harder. I set deadlines. I become more ambitious. So I actually set more goals for the day, and I also clarify why I want to push myself, why I want to do these tasks and what their higher purpose is. Or you can add risk. Maybe you get an accountability partner, and if you don't get it done by Friday, then you pay him some money or her. So this would all be ways to increase the challenge. You want to have a little bit more, so you want more ambiguity, you could say, more challenge in a way to get yourself into flow if you're bored. Or in turn, if you feel anxious, if you feel overwhelmed, if it's too hard for you, then you have to decrease the challenge. So if you have a massive, overwhelming task like writing an entire master's thesis, break it down into smaller chunks. You say, all right, today I just start a new Word document and I just paste down some information. That's my goal for today. That's it. And again, that will reduce the anxiety a bit, and you will get into it. Then maybe if you are super ambitious, you want to work 8 hours, but it causes anxiety, and you think about, oh God, how the hell am I supposed to survive 8 hours of work? Then you just plan less for the day. Plan less so that you feel comfortable again, and then you can take action. Excuse me. And what you can also do is, of course, schedule more breaks. If you feel like you cannot, let's say jogging, if you don't feel like you cannot jog 1 hour in a row, just make some breaks and say, all right, after 10 minutes, I just walk for a minute or two, and then I start jogging again. So just get more breaks in so that the anxiety goes down and that you can take action, so you get into flow again. And what this will do is better engagement. And with better engagement, of course, you get more dopamine from the activity. The next one is clear goals. So let me pop that in for you. What clear goals means is both setting goals and making a list of the tasks that you want to execute. Now, ideally, again, as a flow coach, I'd recommend that you have flow sessions or work sessions of ideally 90 to 120 minutes. And that is because our energy levels, they actually stay high for this amount of time before they drop, before you experience a drop, and you need a break. Ultradian rhythms, that's what it's called. But generally, for every flow or work session, you want to set a crystal clear goal. For example, write 500 words to explain the 6 flow triggers in this video. Crystal clear goal that you can tick off. Then, in addition to that, what you want to do is maybe take a piece of paper and just scribble down what you do in ridiculous detail. And I mean ridiculous. It could be step 1 or task 1 could be to open your laptop. Task 2 could be to start a Word document. Task 3 could then be search on Google for relevant information. Task 4 is to paste down the information in the Word document, etc. And as stupid as it sounds, what this does is reducing cognitive load. So once again, cognitive load, the less you think, the more brain capacity you have left to focus. And that is what this does for you, because normally you start a task and you don't know what to do. You have all of these thoughts in your head that distract you. Like, oh God, what should I do? I don't think I can do this in this time. How should I even start? And by making this list that you just have to execute, you don't have to think anymore. You can just focus on executing, on working. You reduce cognitive load, and that will get you into flow. In fact, clear goals is also a way to reduce procrastination. Believe it or not, it's an amazing tool. And the next time you sit at a task and you don't know how to start, you don't feel like doing the work, use this flow trigger, use clear goals. Write down what you have to do in ridiculous detail, make a session goal, and then just execute the list. And I will guarantee you that it is one of the best ways to beat procrastination. All right. And last one would be immediate feedback. In this case, what you want to do is to either A, if you work together with other people, other team members, set up weekly meetings, maybe weekly or monthly, just regular meetings in which you report your progress, report your wins, report what you've done, how it is beneficial for the entire project, and get feedback from other people. Or alternatively, get yourself a personal mentor, a coach, or an accountability partner who you report to. And this has two advantages for you. The first one is that if you report your wins, your progress to other people, you get dopamine. You get this rewarding and motivating neurochemical in your brain. It is released and it will motivate you to keep going. And again, more dopamine means more flow. On the other hand, what feedback will do for you is that you get back on track faster. So maybe you stumble across a problem, you don't know how to solve it. Then you can bring it forth. You can discuss it with other people. This will give you more ideas. And once again, if you then solve the problem and overcome ideas, you know what to do, then you get into flow more easily. Because getting stuck and hung up on a problem is not a way to get into flow. But discussing your problems with someone else, coming up with solutions and implementing them will help you to get on track faster and to stay in flow for longer. All right, and what you can, now that you know all of these 6 flow triggers, you can actually incorporate them the next time you set goals. And you can infuse your goals with flow, basically, and become more productive, become high performing. So when you set a goal, make sure you have curiosity, passion, and purpose down. So is there something interesting about your goal? Maybe the guitar, maybe you love playing the guitar, so be curious. Maybe you look into new songs. Maybe you learn about the fretboard or music theory. Maybe look into how maybe new equipment like guitar pedals, etc. So let the curiosity play because that will give you more dopamine. Then passion. Make sure that you love what you do. So make sure that you love playing the guitar, ideally. And purpose. Maybe you can play the guitar to make a better day, to make others feel better. Maybe you can share songs on YouTube to help those that are in a bad mood, for example. So again, if you have another positive impact on others, you get even more dopamine from doing the activity. So you can weave this in with your goals. Autonomy, very importantly. Either, again, love what you do or give yourself a reason why you want to do it. If you hate jogging, a way to do it would be, a way to increase your autonomy would be to tell yourself why jogging is so good for you. It improves blood flow to your brain. It improves mood. There are tons of studies out there, so you become more intelligent, literally. It improves, again, your mood in general. It improves your health, your cardiovascular health. You might not die from a heart attack. So there are a million reasons why, and if you tell yourself all of this, you do it for a specific reason, then you get dopamine from the activity and you get into flow easier. Complete concentration. Make sure that you remove all distractions. So before you start working on your most important task, get rid of your phone and all of the other distractions that you have, because that will allow you to focus better and to get into flow easier. Challenge and skills, balance. So when you set a new goal, make sure it's hard enough that you don't get bored. On the other hand, make sure that it's not too hard, that you get anxiety, that you feel overwhelmed by your goal. So again, adjust the challenge and skills balance properly. Clear goals. That means that besides having your overarching goal, you want to set clear goals for each. Every time you work on your goal. So maybe you have the 90 to 120 minutes sessions, and you want to list out especially what you do in those sessions, the task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, to accomplish the goal of this session. And lastly, immediate feedback. So get an accountability partner. Set up group meetings in which you report your progress to. Get a coach, get a mentor, etc. Because again, let's as an example, let's use jogging again. You can get a jogging partner. You can maybe you want to jog 60 minutes a week, 5 times a week. I mean, sorry. And by having this accountability partner, or maybe even someone who you jog with, you have someone who you can talk to. You can report your progress, and this will then, of course, motivate you to keep going in the long term. And lastly, talking about flow, as a flow coach myself, I would be amiss if I wouldn't talk about this opportunity, and that is one-to-one high performance coaching. So if you are willing to have a breakthrough, to get to the next level, to become a high performer and reach all of your goals, work with me. Send me an email at nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com and we can make things happen. And my coaching spans those 7 things I listed here, so I can help you to find your passion, purpose, and your mission in life. Because once again, if you have this down, especially for your profession, then you have just created a source of flow in your life every single day. So you have created a source of extreme productivity, creativity, and fulfillment, very importantly. Because flow is also a key to become happy. It's actually known in studies that the happiest people in the world are those with the most flow. Then, of course, we can optimize your routine for peak performance, which includes, of course, your general health and brain health as a neuroscientist, of course, and energy levels, importantly. Then I can help you with time and task management skills to get all of your tasks done with excellence while you win time back for yourself and others. Then, of course, we can set, monitor, and accomplish any goal that you want. Then, of course, as a flow coach, we can look into how to get you into flow consistently, so make the necessary adjustments beyond what I can tell you in these videos, of course, custom tailored for you, that is. Then we can optimize the dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine levels in your brain, because believe it or not, these neurochemicals are actually messed up in depression. And in turn, if you optimize all of these neurochemicals, then you have pretty much a key for happiness, you have found the key for drive, and you have found the key to fulfillment, and of course accomplishment. And lastly, of course, we can build up your grit, your mental toughness. We can work on your leadership skills, such as empathy, using neuroscience principles. And of course, we can work on increasing your creativity so that you have more of those breakthrough ideas. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, just shoot me an email, nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com, and we can together work on making you the best version of your life. And that concludes the video. So as always, thank you for your time and attention. And to conclude this video, let me highlight one last thing, and that is that knowledge is useless without implementation. So please make use of your newfound knowledge and use the 6 flow triggers. Use them to your advantage to make your life more flowy. Make yourself a high performer and get the enjoyment that you deserve out of what you do. So get your curiosity, passion, and purpose dialed in. Increase your autonomy. Guarantee complete concentration. Adjust the challenge and skills balance for more flow. Not too much and not too little. Map out crystal clear goals and make your task list. And get your immediate feedback. That said, have a flowy week, high performance, and I will see you in the next video.